So the library is located right in the heart of the Morrab Gardens in Penzance. It is within beautiful subtropical gardens as well. I think the most unique point about our collections is the Cornish collection. We have one of the largest and most comprehensive collections of Cornish material in the whole of Cornwall and throughout the UK. All sorts of amazing personal stories that really bring what life was like here to life. It really reflects the reading tastes and the ideas of members of the library over these 200 years.
The library didn't actually move into this building, which we're sitting in today, until 1889, which was when the gardens opened. Before then it was a private house. It started off in something called Cummins Hotel in the marketplace, and it tended to follow the Geological Society around. For a while they were in what's now called Parade Chambers, very near the library, but was then called the Commercial Buildings, and then they all moved into St John's Hall, because that's what St John's Hall was built for, really. Then they came here, and they had all this space, and they said to everybody, bring us your books, we've got all these rooms to fill. This really explains the nature of the library's stock to some extent.
So when you first come into the library, you enter into the reception area, which is where we hold all of our fiction collections, and it's where you'll find the desk staff and the volunteers who welcome you, and it's where you can borrow your books and return your books as well. And then you go through to the reading room, which is what we call the good room, and that's where our history books are located, and it's also where we host talks and events. So a couple of times a year we host open days, one day for the archives and another for the rare books, and that's a chance to get all of those really special collections that are locked away in very secure and environmentally sound storage areas to come out to be on display and to show members and visitors some of the treasures of the library that we hold that you may not necessarily realise that we hold. So it's a bit of a taster session, but it's also a bit of a chance to just remind people that these collections are very important and very special. The Shakespeare group's been running for about 20 years now, led by Mary. I think a fair number of people have actually been with her for that whole 20 years and are on their sort of third or fourth repeat of some of the plays. But they're an amazing group. Each term they choose a new play and they work through all the details of it and try to analyse it and understand it better, and then move on to the next play. And they have a great time. You often hear lots of cheerful jocularity coming from that group as they're reading out the plays and discussing them. The following room it's a bit of a hybrid room. There's 3 different types of collections in this one small room, but they're all very lovely. One's our very important historical philosophy collection. We also have a really beautiful travel and geography collection spanning 200 years, so all sorts of exciting titles and books in there. And then that's also where we have our children's section, where we have a little area for the children to be able to not only just look at books and borrow them, but also to sit and read on the beanbag that's in there. Further down the hall you'll find the Jenner room, which is our Cornish books. So all of our Cornish books are in the one room, and this is like the jewel in the crown, if you like. It's where a lot of local researchers, a lot of people studying local history, and a lot of researchers come in and use, and also people who are just trying to find out about the house they moved into. So it's a bit of it's the most popular room, and it's also the room where the Penwith Local History Group meet every month. The Penwith History Group has been running for a very long time, and they are the documenters of the history of Penwith. Between them all, they have researched so much, and they've used our archives and other resources to write books and papers and provide information for local people all about the history of our area. And they're a very important team, so it's a real honour to host them here at the library. I think it's really appropriate the Penrith Local History Group are based here. Most of them are members anyway, but also we're probably the biggest library if you think of West Cornwall and you're thinking of Penzance and west of there, we're definitely the biggest library, and we have the most amazing resources to do with Cornish history. So it sort of feels like a marriage made in heaven, really, because they can use our resources and we get back so much from them through the results of their research and the work they do. Then we move into the extension, which was built in 2013, and there you'll find our art room, which is all very jazzy. It's very bright blue and very bright green, and all of our art books are in there, and that's an amazing collection because most of those books have been donated because they are beautiful and large and very expensive books, but really, really good collection covering, again, many, many years of history of art right up to the current day. And then we head upstairs, and at the top of the stairs to the left you'll find the Natural Sciences room, and we have a large collection of historical and current books all relating to the animal world, geology and mathematics and science and medicine and all sorts of gems in there, and it's a lovely little room with a beautiful fireplace as well. I love the Natural Sciences room, but that's because I previously worked in the Natural History Museum, and many of the books that are in that collection were also ones that I worked with in London at the NHM, and I love the subject. I love reading about the wildlife and all the especially the dinosaur hunters, the Victorian dinosaur hunters back in that day when science was really kind of emerging. The naturalists were starting to really come to grips with the world and how it was formed, and moving away from the old religious ideas about how the world was formed. Poetry room contains a selection of poetry books from many ages and across many countries. Poetry here is very popular amongst our members. We have many members who love poetry and are poets themselves, and we also run a fortnightly poetry group as well, so it's a very well used and well loved room. Next door to that is the incredibly eclectic Hedgeland room, and it's eclectic because it covers a whole range of subjects. You start off with social history and economic history of women's rights and the suffragettes, and then we go into spies and naval history and then military history, and then there's more books on fashion and then folklore and sport and leisure, and then a whole rack of books on Napoleonic history, just to town it all off. And it's a beautiful room, it's got lovely sea views, so it's a very popular room for members to use. But the most popular room upstairs is the literature room, and that's because it contains all of the books we have about writers and about writing and techniques, and our Shakespeare collection as well. It's got the most spectacular views of the sea, so members are very keen. They fight over the tables in there to work in there, because it's quite an inspiring room if you're a writer, but also just a very beautiful room to be in. Next to that is our very small but perfectly formed Rees room, and in there you'll find all of our world literature, so all of the classic, ancient and more recent foreign texts, including Dante and Voltaire and the ancient Roman and Greek classics as well, and loads of dictionaries covering all sorts of different languages, dating way back as well. Down the hallway is the Elizabeth Trefury room. This is our most recent room. This comes from a donation from the late Melissa Hardy, who is the leader of the High Patient Trust charity, and she donated her collection of around 3,000 books on Cornish women, books by and about Cornish women, which is very important because I think in history women have been a bit neglected in the story of Cornwall and West Cornwall in particular, so this hopes to rectify the balance a little. It also has a really strong Bronte collection, because I'm not sure everybody realises that the mother of the Brontes, Maria Bradwell, was from Penzance, as was her family, so there's a strong local connection to the Bronte family. And then finally we go to the theology room, and virtually every book in here is a donation from Pedro Hedgeland, who was originally the vicar of St Mary's here in Penzance and went on to become a very senior cleric in the Church of England. There's a plaque in his name in Turin. When he died, he donated thousands of books to the collection, and he was So we have one of the most unusual and probably one of the most important local Cornish theology collections as well. Faye Dobinson's been a member of the library for a number of years now, and she asked us if she could be our artist in residence one year, which she tackled earlier this year. And now she runs classes here as well for people. So she's just a bundle of joy and just a really good example of people that find inspiration in the library and want to share that with other people. Our volunteers are vital to the library, and it's so special to be able to work with them. There are only 5 staff, and we have 75 volunteers who essentially keep the library open and running. Without them, we just wouldn't exist. And they do all of the work, from conserving the books and cleaning them, to cataloguing them, to shelving them, to working at the front desk and welcoming visitors. We even have one who's the pest inspector, who comes and checks all the pest traps and makes sure there's no bookworms or anything eating our book. The team in the photo archive who scan all of the photos as well. So they're an incredible team, and they're such good sports. They are always willing to help. They're always so cheerful, and they just love being here, and it's just wonderful. They're a fantastic team. We have a team of 4 book conservators, 2 of which have been working here for many years, and they are volunteers who come in twice a week, and they clean all of the books in the library and repair anything that needs fixing as well. So they basically start at the beginning of the collection, and they take every single book off the shelf, they dust it down and clean it and put it back again, and then when they've finished the entire library, they just start all over again. And I think they're on round 4. They do an amazing job, and without them we would be in big trouble, because obviously the care of the books is such a priority for us, and they take such care, and they just love what they do, and they're a fantastic team.
The Friday afternoon tours are quite a highlight. We get all sorts of people, new members, visitors, people who've just wandered in because it's raining. The tour lasts about an hour and a half, and I try and find a newspaper from as near as I can to 100 years ago. I take people around the rooms on the ground floor. I show them Humphrey Davy's chair, and there's a great little cabinet of ephemera in the local history room as well. I show them the map of Penzance in 1841. I tell them some stories about people who've been significant donors to the library. I tell them about a poet called John Davidson and his connection with the library, and generally try to give a varied picture.
So we are a membership organisation. We rely on income from membership and donations and bequests to survive, because we're not publicly funded at all. So we have over 800 members at the moment, and they're a fantastic, lovely bunch of people who just love borrowing the books or coming to use spaces, or even just use this as a social venue to come and have a cup of tea and see who's around and have a chat. Very tolerant of each other, and they're really inclusive. So it's a really happy place to be, and I think people really find it a bit of a safe place to be. And I think people find it a bit of a peaceful place to be when life's feeling a bit stressed outside or things are going on. It's always a warm place to come to, and to feel just a little bit of a peace. You can, as I said, stare out at the sea from a lovely chair and have a cup of tea, or just talk to nice people and remind you that the world's not all bad. So membership's quite special, and I think people have a real affinity with this building. I think many libraries of this vintage are purpose-built institutions and have a bit of formality about them, but this still feels very much like a family home, with just a lot of bookshelves put up on the walls, and I think that lends itself very much to people feeling quite comfortable and happy.